Purpose of this, think about Allison and Mark and their Super Bowl days. Wanted us to just sort of give a briefing every day as we continue to go forward. So you got a lot of the information yesterday about what we can expect for this year's Indianapolis 500. So I just wanted to add a couple of things today, just so you guys are aware. We continue to watch weather, obviously, for the weekend. And as we get closer to race day, tomorrow we'll probably have a more specific outline of what we think might or might not happen regarding any kind of weather scenarios and how it impacts track activity. With respect to track activity tomorrow, we continue to watch weather, and again, it's hard to exactly know, but we had a group together today. We're going to get together this evening, and then first thing tomorrow morning as it relates to how we're going to handle on track. But just so you know, as we're looking at on track for tomorrow, our priority is the IndyCar practice. So if we end up having to modify our schedule at all, the first thing we'll try and do is get that 1 hour practice in for IndyCar. I think they'd like to have a minimum of 30 minutes of green light time, but we certainly love to get them that hour. So that's the first priority for us. Freedom 100, we would love to get in tomorrow as well if we can. It's just difficult if we have to push that into Saturday because that will cause us to make some significant changes. So if we get impacted by weather tomorrow, you will just know that the biggest priority for us is getting the IndyCar practice in, then the Freedom 100 and the pit stop competition, and the concert. The concert will go on unless there's lightning. So even with some rain, the concert will go on. So I don't anticipate a big change there. And wind would be another reason that the concert wouldn't go on, but lightning and wind. Other than that, I would anticipate that it still would start about 3:30. So we'll let everyone know first thing in the morning if we feel like there's going to be any changes. But as you're thinking through, and we're looking at weather, you can know that the most important thing for us tomorrow is getting in that IndyCar practice. So we'll look for every window to get that completed. The other thing talk about tomorrow is that we will be in race mode as it relates to our gates. So the gates that are open, the fans that come in will be able to see at least an idea of how the gates are going to operate on race day. So on race day, we will have the ESG security checking all coolers and bags as they come in, and then tickets will be scanned as they come into the gates. So that will be happening tomorrow, so all fans that are coming can expect to have their coolers and bags checked when they get here. In addition, if you're parking in the infield at the Speedway tomorrow, it's just like race weekend. You have to have a parking credential to get in. Any other parking will be outside of the facility. So that will be essentially like it will be on race day tomorrow as we operate for Carb Day moving forward. We continue to look at the heat as well for Sunday. I know that's one of the things that we may be dealing with. So we'll have 80 misters. We're going to have some cooling buses and some other things on standby so that we can take care of that, and we'll continue to inform you as we get closer to race day where those will be and how those will operate. Today we had a little bit of weather. It was a nice run for us to begin to communicate with our customers. We started communicating with them when weather was about 90 minutes out, and it's finally at some point about 30 minutes out we ended up canceling practice and asking people to come out of the grandstands, and most of them stood under, and then we made the decision just because the rain was going to linger long enough and it was difficult for Indy Lights to completely strike all of their qualifying that had taken place and start over to go ahead and today close the track for today. So the Indy Lights teams will start by points. But it was a good opportunity for us to go through our communication plan with the operations team and others related to weather and making sure that we were prepared to move people from the grandstands and make sure our messaging and some of the other things that were on the video board and the way we operated our PA in the event we have to do that either tomorrow or Sunday. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Boles. Dr. Boles is our medical director here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway when we're racing, and when we're not racing, he's managing the emergency room down at Methodist Hospital and has done this for several years. So there's a lot of things that Dr. Boles helps us communicate to our fans. One of the great things about our partnership with IU Health, we have several medical stations around the facility. We obviously have the infield care center. It is the busiest infield care center, or it is the busiest emergency room in the state of Indiana on race day here. Typically every year in the last few years has proven to be that case. So Dr. Boles.
That's true. And I guess I'll start a little bit by telling you what resources we have. We have an 18-bed infield care center in the infield. In addition, we have 15 first aid stations around the property. On race day, we'll have 5 track surface ambulances just for the drivers in the event that they would crash. We'll have 17 ambulances dedicated just to spectator care. We'll have additionally 8 golf cart ambulances and 7 roving medical teams. So I think that we're prepared to cover the property pretty well in that respect. And I would also like to say a couple words about what one of the main problems that we see is heat illness. And I think that this Sunday is going to be quite warm and humid. And really it's the humidity, I think, which hurts us more in terms of the number of spectators with injury or illness that we see. And heat illness is kind of a spectrum of diseases. It ranges from the very benign heat cramps all the way through heat exhaustion to heat stroke, which is really a life-threatening medical emergency. What we would suggest for people who are planning to be at the track all day is to make sure that they hydrate. We want to make sure that they start hydrating early, too. It's kind of a continuous process. You can't wait till you think you're dehydrated and then start drinking extra fluid because you're going to be behind the 8 ball. So when you're out in hot weather, in humid weather, we suggest an extra cup or two of fluids every hour all day long. And that would be fluids that don't contain alcohol and not a high sugar content, because the sugar molecules are very osmotically active and tend to pull fluid from your tissues, and you end up losing fluid that way as well.
And I'm a firsthand violator of the dehydration rule. In 2013, I ended up seeing Dr. Boles before the Xfinity race and got 2 bags of fluid, and he sent me home. And actually, he told me I couldn't drive. And so as a 47-year-old at the time, and my wife was in Chicago, I had to call my dad and have my dad come to the Speedway and pick me up and take me home. Yes, that's a great rule that we all have to follow. One other thing I'll add, and then we'll take some questions. One of the things we have been looking at for several years and obviously we have a family mound at the exit of turn 2 on the inside, where we're really encouraging families to be there, less about the people that are here to drink and to have more of a party. We are going to, for Carb Day, tomorrow, we are going to have sections 31 through 34 in the Paddock Penthouse, which is right across the way from the Carb Day pit stop competition. We are going to make those smoke-free tomorrow. So for those families that want to find a place to sit that is smoke-free at the Speedway tomorrow, those are going to be in sections 31 to 34 of the Paddock Penthouse. Those are seats that are in the new seats in the upper deck, and they're right across from the pit stop competition. That's only for Carb Day, and we will continue to evaluate our smoking policy here over the next several weeks and months, and we'll update folks on what might be to come for 2017. But for this year, we are going to, for the first time, have at least a few sections that are non-smoking, sort of family-related sections for Carb Day, so folks can enjoy the pit stop competition in a non-smoking or a smoke-free area. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Doug, it sounds like you got a test run today with weather, but obviously there weren't close to 400,000 people in the Speedway. What is your expectation? What are you anticipating if you do get weather on Sunday?
Well, I think the most important thing for us from an operations standpoint is making sure that our communication channels work, both internally so that everybody who is pushing the message out is on the same page, and then how do we push that out externally? So how do we make sure that the folks on the PA are synced up with what you see on the video boards, as well as through our social media? So we're just making sure that the message gets out the right way, and we want to make sure that we're messaging to our fans as early as possible about weather. At some level, there are as weather comes in, some people may be less comfortable about staying longer than others, so that's one of the things. And then you saw today when we decided that we needed to ask people to leave the grandstands that we also have to stop activity on the track, because you can't ask people to leave the grandstands when there's activity still going on. So it was an opportunity for us to kind of work through that. The biggest issue for us, making sure internally we're all ready to communicate the right message to our fans, and making sure that we deliver it in a way that they can understand. So it was actually a nice opportunity for us to walk through that today, and you're correct. It was a small crowd compared to what would be here on Sunday, and hopefully Sunday we don't have to deal with that, but this was a nice way to begin that process.
What is the plan if you have to evacuate the grandstand? What is the plan to exodus all those people?
So we have, and I think we'll talk a little bit more about this tomorrow or Saturday morning. We've been a little reluctant to say what the plan is, because there's so many different weather scenarios and the way the weather could get here, and we don't want to get a plan out in front of it that might change based on what comes. So we look at each of the different scenarios, the timing, what type of storm, is it wind, is there lightning, is there tornado, is it just rain? There's a whole bunch of different scenarios related to how we would ask people to either evacuate or let them know that it's just rain and they can remain in their seats. So we will talk more about that. That's why we begin really monitoring weather right now, and it's, as you guys know, it's almost changing hourly. In fact, one of our meetings we had earlier today, I got a weather report at the beginning of the meeting, and then towards the end of the meeting, it had changed significantly, sort of within an hour and a half. So we'll talk more about that tomorrow, and certainly Saturday morning we have a pretty good idea what kind of weather we might face on Sunday. And in addition to how to manage the folks that are here, we'll also be able to give you a better idea of what might happen if we needed to push the race from its normal time somewhere else.
Doug, are there any plans for fireworks related to the race?
That's a great question. There is the gate boom that goes off in the morning, obviously, and at this point, I think the only thing related to fireworks are some pyro, which isn't really fireworks as it relates to the Carb Day stage. So I don't think there are any fireworks. Allison's nodding her head. I'm making sure. At this point, there are no fireworks related to race day. What's that? Oh, the dog says, yeah. Annie's dog says thank you. Yes.
I have a question for Dr. Boles. How many physicians and nurses will you have on site race day?
That's a good question. We'll have, just for the drivers, there will be 6 physicians. In the spectator care portion of the infield care center, there will be 12 physicians and I believe about 12 nurses as well. And then, of course, there are paramedics around the property, and they're staffing the first aid stations.
Doug, real quick, one just follow-up to your question. Obviously, it sounds like you guys are evaluating hour by hour, minute by minute, and don't really have a plan until we get a little closer to the race on what to expect. Is there something that you want race fans, as they are watching very closely now, to keep in mind going into this weekend?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing from a fan standpoint, we will do the best we can to give you information from which to make a decision. And that's really, we will start doing that as early as possible. And if you've been around the Speedway at all over the last few years, you'll notice that we'll even put up radar when there's no weather, because we want people to get used to looking for that radar so that when it is an issue, they're able to make that decision. So we will get as much information to the fan as we can from our PA, through our large screen video boards here, through our social media. I think it comes down to everybody really paying attention to it and figuring out what their comfort level is. And when you know something's coming, if you're not comfortable staying to a point where we've decided that you need to go somewhere else, we just ask people to make the right decision. It's going to take both of us to make sure people are informed, and then those folks to be able to also decide for them what the right thing to do is.
Another question for Dr. Boles. What have you learned here that translates to public health and the trauma victims on public highways?
Public health in regards to trauma patients on public highways. I would say that what I've learned from my experiences here has been that we could probably reduce the number of deaths on public highways if we improved restraining systems in personal automobiles and had the same type of safety engineering in personal cars that we have in the Indy cars.
Anybody else? Great. Well, we'll do the same thing again tomorrow, just more of a briefing than any kind of announcement. We'll give you an update of where we are, and as I said, we continue to monitor weather and monitor sort of when and where we think the crowd's coming in. And I can't end a press conference or a press availability without saying be early, plan where you're going to go, and just have a lot of patience. That's really the biggest messaging we're trying to get to our fans right now. It's really important in order for this event to go as smoothly as we hope it will, so that everybody's early, plans, and is patient. So thank you.